This comment is a great example of what Antonio Gramsci called hegemonic common sense. We have internalized capitalist ruling class ideology and ideas so much that we cannot see past this terrain of acceptable ideas. And anything presented outside of that terrain is unrealistic. It's a fairy tale. Capitalism is a law of nature. It is inevitable. It is necessary. There is no other way to formulate society outside of capitalism. Things would just self-implode. At least this is what they want us to believe. Can you imagine if this guy, Greg Poohman, was working in an Amazon factory in Staten Island with Chris Smalls when Chris Smalls was trying to organize a union and fight for workers' rights and to change the system? What do you think this guy would have said to someone like Chris Smalls? He would have said, "What kind of fairy tale are you living in, pal? You think we can unionize and go against Amazon? Are you crazy?" And yet, Chris Smalls did just that. In every age, in every era, there are reactionaries which must be overcome. Their thinking must be overcome. There are always people that simply maintain the status quo, that perpetuate it, and they help the ruling class by stomping out and trying to curtail new revolutionary ideas. This person is a shining example of that. Most people who ask a question this way are deeply unserious and argue in bad faith, so there's really very little point. I only show this comment here now because I want to show my audience. I want you to understand when people say these kinds of things, where this is coming from and how to combat this type of thinking, because it is historically inaccurate. There are always social movements and there's always people behind social movements working to progress forward our society, and that is always happening. That is the reason that we have more freedom today than we did in the 1500s. This person in the 1830s would have been arguing for slavery, saying that's just how the world is. To think that slavery, chattel slavery, could be abolished is just a fairy tale. This person in the 1920s would have been saying there's no way that women can vote. They're not equal citizens. That's a fairy tale. They can't enjoy the same rights as men. This person in the 1960s would have been arguing against the Civil Rights Act. That was just a fairy tale. To go against the prevailing structure and to chip away at its injustices is a fairy tale. We shouldn't even try. We shouldn't even attempt. At least that's what these kinds of people want us to believe. And yet history always proves these people wrong. When we as critical thinkers are advocating for more freedom and more rights for the working class, reactionaries love to clutch their pearls and defend the ruling class rather than recognizing the injustices in the present moment and trying to move past them or work through them. A reactionary will look to the past, cite some historical example of why it can't work. They always have excuses, right, of why it can't work. It's a fairy tale. It didn't work in the past.